All right, here I'm going to talk about Plato. I'll call this Plato number one, and the things I was talking about would be knowledge in Plato, and then theoria, which is the Greek word for the kind of contemplation that one desires to do. Okay, this is when you get to as the soul ascends, theoria is becomes central. Right, you want to be able to contemplate reality in order to effect kinship or to the union with real reality, which is knowledge. So, some of Plato, he's considered the greatest philosopher of all time. He is credited with formulating many of the substantial questions and answers in philosophy, and so we still basically live in Plato's world, right? So even if you have people who have rejected his questions or answers, I mean, he certainly set them up, and we're still discussing many of the things that he sort of raised for us. Now, the doctrine of contemplation is central to Plato's understanding of the world. So, for Plato, originally, human souls contemplated eternal truths. Okay, you can call them realities. Okay. So these eternal truths, they're called the forms, okay, or ideas. Now, so these are what's actually real. They're the most real things. Okay, so they are. This is reality in its purest form, so to speak. Now, the soul, when the soul joins a human body, so when you have a, so you become, when you're human, you have a soul and a body. So in this joining, in conception and birth, it's a painful process, and the soul then forgets what it was like to have the perfect vision of truth, of beauty that it once had. Okay, so you might say, well, we have this immortal soul that once contemplated the eternal truths and the forms and the ideas. Well, why don't I know that? Well, that's because you've forgotten what that perfect vision was like. And so, for Plato, knowledge is remembering what the soul once knew. Okay? Now, so the current world that we live in is a world of conjecture and opinion. Okay, it's transitory and temporal. So in this world, knowledge is impossible. Okay, because we cannot have the eternal, the unchangeable realities, the forms, just cannot be fully present in our world, which is limited, transitory, temporal. So, for knowledge has to be certain if it's going to be called knowledge. Otherwise, it isn't, right? So, if I said, for instance, I know that there is a grocery store down the street, it's knowledge if, yeah, I'm certain about it. Now, if I said, well, I think there is a grocery store down the street, then you can say, well, look, that's a conjecture, that's an opinion, maybe a justified opinion, right? Because maybe I drove up the street in the morning and I think I saw something. So there's definitely something there, but it's not knowledge. And when we use knowledge, we're thinking of something that's certain. Okay, and so if you're going to have knowledge, then it has to be immutable. Immutable means unchangeable. Okay, and it has to be eternal. So the objects of true knowledge, because knowledge is certain, have to be things that in themselves also certain. That's unchangeable and eternal. Okay, so knowledge in its perfection is impossible in this life. Okay, that's in our current world. Knowledge is actually impossible. So if you are you're in a search for knowledge, you really want to know the truth, like truth, a capital T, the truth of all things. That's something that you can only fully attain outside of this life. And so, since philosophy is a love of truth, it's literally a love of wisdom. That's what the word philosophy means. Okay, phileo, this means love, and Sophia is wisdom. Okay, so philosophy is love of wisdom, love of truth. And so if you're going to practice philosophy, then you realize you can't get the full truth in this life, and it has to be when you're free from the body and that you can contemplate the forms. So philosophy, I'm going to use the symbol for philosophy, is a preparation for dying. So what is it that we want to see, remember, and encounter when we die? Well, it's described under several objects. It's being, so this is being as in existence, right? It's there. It's something. Okay. The good, right? That which is most desired, and in itself doesn't desire anything else, right? So you think of what characterizes something that's good. It's that it's desirable. Okay, and so the good is the ultimate object of desire, and could not conceivably be any nothing could be conceivably desired beyond this. Okay, so its goodness is comes from itself and not from anything else. Okay, beauty and the one. Okay, so you can describe the quest for for knowledge as a quest for these things. Okay, being, the good, beauty, and the one. Okay, so you're looking for something that transcends the changing and shifting nature of this world. Okay, so real knowledge, okay, is it's greater than just simple intellectual awareness, right? So, for instance, you might say, "Well, I did a math class and I learned about matrices," or "I did a chemistry class and I learned about isotopes," right? So that's an intellectual awareness. That's knowledge about things. Okay, real knowledge goes beyond that. Okay, so these things, in some way, are included in the quest for knowledge and truth because they are there. But real knowledge goes beyond that. Real knowledge is a participation. So this word becomes important in Platonic thinking. Is there participation in the realm of forms, okay, or ideas? And that's up here. So that's real knowledge. Now the realm of forms is the divine world? And that's because the forms are eternal and immortal. Okay, the realm of forms is ultimate reality. Okay, and the soul belongs in this realm. So that's just the symbol for belongs. So the soul belongs in this realm of forms. Remember, it's originally the soul originally was contemplating the forms, and then was joined to a body in conception. So this is where the soul actually really belongs. So a couple of things then about the soul is that the soul, the human soul, has kinship. Okay, and the word for kinship is synergeia. So it has kinship with the ideas. Right? So the soul is essentially divine in its nature. Okay, it's of the same nature with with ideas, and the search for the forms. So when we say ideas of forms, we're saying the same thing. So search for the forms is a homecoming. Okay, so the soul is naturally divine. Okay, and seeks to return to the divine realm. Now, I just want to make a couple of comments that have to do with the Christian appropriation of Platonism. So this idea of the soul's kinship with the divine will become problematic in Christian thinking, and the in Christianity there's a division between God and everything else. Okay, so that divinity is typically ascribed to God and is related to the idea of being uncreated, while everything else is created. Okay, so in Christianity, the soul is not divine. Okay, and the process of the soul's ascent is not a homecoming, right? So there'll be a break there, and I just want to point that out. That's going to be one of the things that some Christians early will adopt the Platonic idea of a homecoming, but very soon, very early on in Christianity, in terms of the early church, so in the 300s, you'll find a clear break with that Platonic idea while preserving the idea of ascent to God. Okay, so how does the soul, so how does the soul return home? So we're going back to Plato. So this becomes the big question, and this is the whole description of the ascent of the soul. Okay, and this I will address in the next video.